Comrades, it's a pleasure and an honor for me that I have been asked to come and inaugurate this very important event. It's an honor because in the very recent past, students in various institutions in the country have been in the forefront of defending democracy. The fact that we still have an education system that inspires students to take up the fundamental cause of the defense of democracy in the country is still a matter of gratification. But if you notice, the students who came to the forefront in this struggle were from institutions like my own university, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Hyderabad Central University, Yadavpur University in Calcutta, Pune Film Institute, the Fine Arts Faculty of the MS University, Baroda, and so on. They are all publicly funded institutions. Not one student uprising, student protest, student action took place in any of the private universities. Now, that's not because the students there are intrinsically any worse than the students in the publicly funded institutions, but it's because they have been beaten into shape by the process of commoditization of education, by the process of commercialization, as Comrade was talking about, so that they are really not any longer in a position to either articulate their social sensitivity or even to raise their voice against any kind of abrogation of democracy. At the same time, in the publicly funded institutions in which the students were in the forefront of the struggle was not on small material issues. I'm not saying material issues are unimportant, but the struggle was not about raising marks, struggle was not about examination papers, struggle was not about even the students' legitimate demands like hostels and so on, which do come up from time to time. All these struggles were struggles about the defense of democracy. As long as students in publicly funded institutions continue to raise their voice for the defense of democracy, that is a threat to the corporate communal alliance which is ruling in this country. It's a threat to the corporate segment of it, because anyone who raises a voice about the impoverishment of the people, about peasant suicides, about the working class grievances, is ipso facto raising a voice against neoliberalism, against the corporate high-handedness that is associated with neoliberalism. And at the same time, anybody who raises a voice in favor of democracy is ipso facto raising a voice for the defense of the secular democratic foundations of the Indian polity and to prevent its sliding into, implicitly if not explicitly, to a Hindu Rashtra. So there are therefore two kinds of attacks which are being launched on the education system in the country. One attack is the commoditization of education, which would make students perforce conformist, without social sensitivity, and really devoid of any desire to protest and to raise their voice on bigger issues. The other attack is an attack on publicly funded institutions to make sure that they become imitations and copies and clones of private institutions, and it is towards this end that issues like no politics on the campus. No politics on the campus basically means that since politics is a way that a person relates to society, it basically means that do not relate to society, simply look at your own material self-interest and the idea is to convert students into self-centered, self-absorbed, self-interested entities, the way that commoditization also converts them. So one attack is commoditize education. The other attack is make the public funded institutions where there is still some kind of voice of the students, some democratic space they can use, deny them that democratic space, convert them into self-absorbed entities, and if they still refuse to do that, in that case, you unleash authoritarianism, you unleash mobs on them. I've been in JNU since 1973, and the kind of attack that we saw in JNU in the recent period is something which I had never seen, not even during the days of the emergency. During the days of the emergency, what was happening was that you could expect the police to come in and to arrest various students or even faculty members. But this time, it was not just the state which was attacking the university, but you actually had mobs around the gates of JNU who had been mobilized in order to attack the university for being anti-national and so on. Now, publicly funded institutions have had a special role for at least two reasons. One is that because there is still some space there, since students have not been converted into commodities, I'll come to that issue later, there is still a lot of space there for protest, for dissent, for expressing your opinion, for multiplicity of views to be expressed. And secondly, because publicly funded institutions so far have kept their fees down, there is a kind of still an inclusiveness about the students. And of course, in places like JNU and elsewhere, you have an admission policy which has actually encouraged students from deprived segments of the population to get admission into these institutions.